And hello, everybody. Welcome back to Unslaved. I am very happy to be here with you and to also have the great Charles Moscowitz back with us once again. He's a returning guest. Happy to have him to talk about his new book, The Satanic Conspiracy. And just a note that Michael sadly can't join us today. Something's come up for him, but we'll be able to have him back next week. So stay tuned for that. But here is Charles' new book. I've been reading through it over the past week. It is just remarkable, the types of questions that he asks. I love that the title here has two of the most explosive words around. It's the Satanic Conspiracy, the specter haunting mankind. And given the current environment that we're in, Charles, the stuff that's going on in the world today, and of course, you and I know this goes way back in ancient times, I can't think of a better title for a book or a better topic to tackle as we navigate this incredible time in which we live. So first of all, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. Let's talk about what inspired you to write this book at this time, because I think the timing's impeccable.
Well, I mean, I see I've always been interested in conspiracy, and my writing the book, God is God, made me aware of the existence of a creator of the universe. And that was a bit of a departure for me because most of my books are political and some are economic. But once I developed an idea that I think proves the existence of a creator, of a divine creator, of a supernatural source of creation, that is the giver of all things, including all laws and precepts, both real and abstract, then you have to take a look at the satanic side of it, the anti-God, the anti-good, the anti-reality, the anti-existence. And what I've realized is that the satanic influence, and in Christianity, there's a tendency to more finely define that in an anthropomorphic sense, in that you literally have some guy with a red suit running around. And I respect that. And they see all these symbols of Satanism, which I also respect, and that those are powerful and deliberate. But I focus more on the satanic influence, what in Judaism is called the Yetzer Hara, the evil influence, that which exists in the vacuum of truth and of good and of reality, actually. And so we have that everywhere. We have the struggle within us and around us as imperfect beings, as created in the image of God, because we're not God, to understand that which is good and that which is evil. And we're influenced by the evil. The evil is sometimes a beautiful thing. I mean, it's alluring. It's the seven deadly sins. We over indulge ourselves in it. And we are then tempted to bring ourselves back and move toward the good, which involves various levels of knowing God. So Satanism is everywhere. It's in us and it's around us. And that's almost a natural thing in our imperfect existence as human beings. But where it becomes as a conspiracy is when you have a deliberate action on the part of people to engage in deception, to say there is no God, we're God. There is no reality. We're going to make up reality because we're powerful, because we have some enlightened vision. There is no objective and abstract source of morality and ethics because it depends on what we think it is. And we're going to fashion it because we are in control of the world. And, there's a tendency in all of us to sometimes do this, but it becomes very dangerous when it is the idea that is embraced by people in power, by what sociologist C. Wright Mills called the power elite, and quite accurately. And that is something that has maintained levels of control throughout the history of the world. They operate in secret because if they're exposed, they're rejected and the truth comes out. So thus they form secret societies and they form secret combines in order to function. And those secret societies sometimes are at war with each other, in which case we have major wars in the world, or they interact with each other and form networks, in which case we have this gradual move toward a physical man-made world control. And I think that we can trace history with regard to this conspiracy going all the way back, and it's something that existed in every generation, but it's particularly critical now, and it's reached a particularly strong tipping point because of technology. We had world wars, we had holocausts, we had forced famines, depressions, recessions, a lot of things that were manipulated by this informal conspiracy. And when I say conspiracy, I don't necessarily mean a bunch of people sitting around in a smoke-filled room, with cigars and scotch. I mean, people that think alike. In the communist time, they called them birds of a feather who flock together. They are people who are rejecting reality, rejecting morality, rejecting God, and they're seeking earthly control. It's reached a point of critical mass now because, as I've said, of technology. Because with artificial intelligence, with satellite technology, computer technology, things like the development of a chip, things like, gain of function, which creates an artificial pandemic that kills millions of people, probably the biggest story to hit the world since the Holocaust, and other modalities that cause us to lose our freedom, censorship, all of these things. We are at a point of real reckoning now. Every generation has fought against this conspiracy, and they put it on its heels at some point in spite of terrible setbacks and losses. But now we're confronting a whole different animal because of these technologies that we've never seen before. And they are in a better position now to reach their final satanic goal, which is earthly control with them in charge, this alleged elite, because they believe that they're superior beings. And I see the world going either in one of two ways. We're either going to fall further and further into the hole of their control, or we're going to rise up and realize what's happening. People like you and I, people like, the Trump supporters, frankly, and a man like Donald Trump, movements around the world like Brexit, and movements in Europe, and even in China with Hong Kong, and other movements. People are wakening up. There is a great awakening. There is an awareness that this is a powerful and satanic force, and that we can stand up against it by means of exposing it, because it operates in the darkness. When you shine, there's an old Talmudic expression, a little bit of light expels an enormous amount of darkness. When you shine a little light into the crevice and expose the lie and the falseness of this conspiracy, that's where it dies. And that's what I think also is happening. The question is, which is going to happen first, and how soon can we get there?
That was so well articulated. That is just, there's so many points to pull out. I had a really good quote from your book that I wanted to read to people. And by the way, you can get it on Kindle. Just look it up, The Satanic Conspiracy by Charles Moscowitz. And what you say here is about free will. And I love that you brought this up, because whether people look at the satanic element of it as some, like you said, this guy that's got these horns in some place, and the whole thing, or whether they look at it as a concept, or they look at it as, because Satan, that word Satan, is really talking about the opposer, the antagonist, the tempter,
Right.
It's the anti-force. So however people conceptualize it, it's the same in the end, because here we are in this situation right now, as you're saying, that we've been exposing for years, and we're all seeing unfold in front of our eyes, of something that feels inhuman happening in the world, or otherworldly, or something anti-human, anti-life, anti-good, anti-truth, anti-light, as you said. So there's something there. And when you brought up free will, I thought, wow, that is very important for people to consider. And let me read the quote. You say, "Free will tempts us to take advantage of others, to violate the natural rights of others by means of force or deception in order to gain advantages for ourselves. And this is likewise the case collectively when we employ our organizations and our nation towards evil intent and action. Indeed, the crowd, the mob, and the collective is more easily brought under the spell of Satan as the individual. When operating as a part of a mob, it is more likely to subsume the code of morality, of personal conscience, and of the independent thought in favor of the warm and comforting sensation of cheap acceptance and easy sovereignty, tend to be replaced experience when the individual places him or herself at the service of the mob. And by doing so, the individual compromises the faculty of objective reason, which tends to be replaced by emotion and by excesses that are associated with the sensate gain. You keep going on there. And what this brought to me was the nature of freedom, that we're here fighting for freedom, but we're not fighting for the freedom to go and loot and rape and pillage from your neighbor. We're not fighting for the freedom of the mob to have just complete control over the individual in society, where they can show up with a bunch of torches, if you don't go along with the program. We could even argue that some of the greatest evil in history wasn't necessarily done specifically by these governments and despots. They were a part of it, but it was the support from the masses. It was support from the crowd, who was easily led by the lies of those despots, right? And so here we are again, Charles. We're watching this pattern repeat itself, where the masses of people are being guided by, it's that old song, blinded by the light. They're blinded by the media and all of these talking heads and celebrities that are literally influencing and persuading their minds to act against the natural instinct they might have otherwise had, right? So this brings in this concept of temptation of the devil, or the way that evil works in the world and in each and every one of us. And so maybe you could expand on your vision of free will then, because I believe free will exists. I believe you do as well. But there's also a code of morality that needs to go along with that, where I'm not using my free will to breach your free will. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. I mean, free will is the element that separated the human being from all other living beings. It's the moment when the soul entered into Adam and Eve. Symbolically, whether you believe that literally or not. The idea is that when God created the universe, he separated himself in something as a supernatural to create the natural world, the world we know. And then when he created man, he separated man from all other living beings by giving man certain properties. And one of those was free will, as opposed to being tied to nature. The other was the ability to reason, the ability to think cognitively and develop concepts. And then the third was the use of language, the first command that God gave Adam in the Garden of Eden was to name all of the world, all the creatures of the world, and use language. So language came about instantaneously. And by the way, the science of linguistics acknowledges this. I interviewed Noam Chomsky many years ago, a man of the left, but also a man of linguistics, very well respected. And his theory points this out, that somehow instantaneously man could speak. It wasn't something that evolved. It's something that was given. And once that happened and we were able to organize knowledge, and then from that, of course, came writing and abstract knowledge and imagination and music and art and all of the expressions that evolved from that, we became aware of ourselves. We became conscious of our existence, and we were able to aggregate knowledge to advance our civilization and begin to know the proper means of moving forward as free will individuals. But as you say, David, in order to have free will, we have to have a system. This is why we create governments. This is why we create organization, so that we can exercise that free will to the maximum degree, while at the same time respecting the free will of our neighbor, because we can't have, otherwise you have anarchy. So therefore, our free will stops at your free will, and that if there's a conflict that might arise, and they naturally do, we set up a system of government, a system of law and order, what the ancient Greeks called logos, which is a social order, in order to adjudicate these kinds of conflicts and come to some resolution. And the founding fathers of the United States really crystallized this idea in the Constitution when they set up a system of checks and balances, a system of limited powers, because they understood that there's an evil side to humanity.